So what I've got here is a piece of firewood that I've had for about a year, and I got these as chunks from somebody for free to just come pick them up, and I cut them, I ripped them and cut the heartwood out of the center, the pith. I wanted to get rid of that, and I painted the ends so they wouldn't check very badly, and I can see one end actually came out really nice. The other one's got a crack, runs down a ways. So yeah, I'm gonna turn this into something. So first thing I want to do is cut these ends off so I can see what I'm really dealing with and try and square them up a little bit. So the next thing on the agenda is to get this nice and smooth. Primarily just gives me something I can mark out so I know what I'm doing. So I'm just going to use a power plane and kind of knock it down. It's about a ½ inch thicker on this end than this end, so I'll probably start working most of it down from this side down. Okay, that's flat enough. Okay, now I'm pulling out the most annoying tool I own. This is actually a chainsaw cutter, and it's on a Harbor Freight, really inexpensive Chicago electric grinder, which with a paddle, which is really important when you're using that tool. It's annoying because I think this is extremely dangerous and it's really hard to control. However, I'm going to use it today because this is dry and hard, and I want to get some of the bulk out of it before I attack it with hand tools. Safety gear is just really important with this stuff. It's also insanely noisy. Well, that was reasonably unpleasant. At least I got some of the bulk off. Jaw horse, by the way. Absolutely love this thing. It's just so handy for working. I move it in and out of the shop all day long. Keep most of the mess out here like this stuff. I'm going to get my air hose out here and blow everything off, blow that off. But so now what I've got is sort of a good start. I have some knots here I'm going to have to fill probably with epoxy. The stuff is really hard to control, so I did go over my line, but that's fine. I allowed myself plenty of cushion. So what I'm going to do is go in and draw my final inside shape and start working it down with a gouge, which is much more fun, takes longer, but it's actually very enjoyable. Where this I find to be just sort of torture in a sense. I just don't really have a good sense for it. So anyway, I'll update you on some process when we get inside. We're inside the shop. So now I've replayed out my pattern for the bowl, and I don't have to mess with the noisy stuff again for a while. You could, you could use a grinder with an abrasive wheel to chew this out, but that's, I don't know, just an awful lot of noise. I would just assume just kind of whack away at it for a while with a hammer and a chisel or gouge. See how I come out. The gouges I have, for the most part, repurposing some lathe turning tools that I've resharpened. Picked them up pretty reasonably on eBay, bought a bunch of them and reground them. Rehandled a few of them. Just kind of refining my outline a little bit. You just can't do this without a really expensive mallet. Well, anyway, I don't know. I have two actually professional mallets. This one I made 40 years ago, maybe. And it seems to be the one I grabbed. This process is slower, certainly, than using power tools. And I have done the whole bowl this way. Greenwood is a lot easier. So you work them green, you get them down, you got to get them all within maybe 1/2 to 3/8 of an inch thick, or a little thicker. Wrap them in paper and stick them up on top of something for, 3-4 months. I take them down, weigh them periodically. Alright, I'm going to continue with this. I won't bore you with that until I get a little further. Alright, I've gone around it and defined my outline with a large gouge and a mallet, and now I'm switching over to some other gouges. This is a really nice one. It's about the only gouge I bought new, I think. But it works really good for spoons and bowls, especially in, evening up the bottom. And this elm is really pretty, I think, once you're done. It's really tough, strong. You can get it quite thin. It's also extremely porous, and so you got to seal it. And I don't really like using an oil on it for anything you're going to be putting food or something in, because it's just too porous for that. Plus, when you got big knot holes like that, all these knots would literally, you could just pour water on it, it would run right through. Plus there's bug holes. You can see some of those here, 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 here. Probably a few more. Those, if they're full of sawdust like that, I'll just put some CA glue on there, some thin CA glue. Let it set up. And do the same with the knots, and maybe rub some sawdust in it. Big knot like that, I'll have to fill with epoxy and sawdust. This can be kind of tiring on your hands, but it's really kind of fun. Just kind of shaving wood off. And who's in a hurry anyway, right? This is nice for getting in the bottom. Once you get a shape going with a gouge, then you can just sort of follow it really easily. You just take a few more shavings off. It's generally getting the first one going is kind of tricky. Once you do, you just sort of follow along. Well, now that I've got the basic shape, hope I didn't get a blister out of that process. Maybe a little bit of one. Consequently, it's probably 60 degrees, 62 degrees in here, and I'm sweating like crazy. And I'm switching over to a scraper. Scraper, only my finish shaping tool of choice here. It shows me where the bad spots really are. I'm not worried too much about perfectly symmetrical. You want symmetrical, get a lathe. Nothing wrong with that. Just a different kind of woodworking. There's nothing practical about what I'm doing here. I don't sell these. Just sort of, I'll make that many of them. Just sort of get in the mood. See what the piece of wood tells me. Let's see here. Call in one of the big dogs. Take out some of these high spots. Board yet. So I had the inside of this bowl pretty much where I want it now. I can get the camera to focus. You can kind of see what's going on with it. My method for depth, I don't know if you can see this, I don't know what you'd call it, much of a depth method. I'm very scientific. I kind of sight along my finger to my thumb, across the top and say okay, and then I come down to this end and say yeah, okay, yeah, it looks like it's about right. If you look at how deep it is, you can see, I've got 1.25 inches maybe down here, and this end where it's of course much shallower, that's maybe 1 inch, but on the bottom you can see it's very thin on this end here. Slopes, this is much wetter, so it's going to get cut down, but you have to have a base under your bowl, and this jags in quite a ways here, so that's still going to be kind of an issue, because even if I cut it down to here across, anyway, it should be interesting to play with and see how that starts to work out. And this part of making a bowl starts to get a little tricky, because holding the bowl, once you start removing a lot of material, it's weak and becomes fragile. So you have to be a little careful with that. You can't clamp it in as well. You have to be a little careful with that. And sometimes power tools actually work best here because they're less aggressive in how you have to hold it and clamp it. So I'm on to that step next, and I'm going to draw my outside pattern around here, shape the outside, and then start removing material from the outside of the bowl. So here's my master plan. I have I want to get a flat bottom on here so I can start working this down so that I can start taking the corners off and such, and without hurting anything. And the easiest way for me, I think, to do that is to use my chop saw, and I've set a depth on here, and you can see, you probably can't see that, but there's a little line. That gives me about 1/2 inch to the bottom on the inside, and that's not bad. Actually, maybe I'll take that just a little bit less. Yeah, maybe 5/8, 9/16, something like that. So anyway, that's the plan. I'm going to make a few cuts and sort of like datuming, but I'll just make a series of cuts across the top of this and then knock them down. Then I'll take a hand plane, clamp it back in the horse, and plane that off flat, and then I have a flat surface to start working from. I have a auto vac switch. I have everything running through a little cyclone, which is really nice. Whatever I'm running, I just hook up the hose for that, and it's all plugged in one electrical. When that comes on, runs the vacuum. This doesn't catch a lot of the sawdust, but it's better than nothing. So, all right. Okay, let's see how this goes. I'm actually going to use a big gouge for this, just because I don't have a long handled straight chisel, which would be handy. Yeah, it's pretty good. have this edge the way I like it, and I can, you know, put that up against a miter saw. So I'm going to run it through here, cut this edge off, and then I can get on with this bowl. Okay, so now what I do is I'm going to chop these corners off right up to the line I marked. I drew a line about 5/8 of an inch all the way around my inside hole. I actually sanded the top of this down just to erase all of my pencil marks, because I kind of like to start cleaner so I didn't not get confused and see what I've got too. So I'm going to cut that, and that'll be a relief, like a little lip that goes around here, and I'll actually undercut it. But for now, what I'm going to do is basically just chop this off. Chop that off right where those are, and make this as uniform as I can. In the past, you can tilt this and cut at an angle. In fact, I might just do that. Takes a little bit more material off. Lock that in. That was stupid. I don't want to make mistakes like that. You want to kind of hold to that angle. It could be a little steeper. Let's see how that is. See, I've already done that before. I really like to rethink this, see if I'm doing something stupid I shouldn't be doing. Which, you know, that happens. For one thing, you're cutting into this piece, it's going to want to try and come out on you, so you got to hold it tight. Alright, we'll see how this goes. So I took the jaw horse outside and I used my angle grinder with, I can't remember right now who makes this, but it's one of these cutting rasps. It's really coarse. This is on a Wen angle grinder that I have, which is pretty good, but it doesn't have a paddle grip, so I won't use it. I just didn't like using it for the chainsaw cutter. This made reasonably short work out of outside shaping this bowl. You cannot use this on green wood at all. Green wood, it just balls right up. So, this is the bowl, and I'm really surprised there's just so many wormholes in this. Really fascinating. So when I get it down to shape, I'm going to have to seal all those with the CA glue. Works fantastic. It just turns hard as a rock. Here's a great big hole I have to fill. But I still need to build this lip. So I need to refine this edge. I'm going to do that on the belt sander. Now I'm going to start defining this lip. I just took it over to the belt sander, kind of went around, refined this outside edge to where I want it. Finished edge, well, finished reference edge anyway. And take a gouge, and I kind of made a little, not quite enough room in here. Made a little divot in here as I ran that wheel around. I kind of ran it up to a point so I could create a little bit of a lip. That's really handy because it really gives me a spot to start building this groove that goes around here. It's not going to be a groove, it's going to be a lip underneath this edge. Just I think it's kind of neat on a hand-carved bowl, you know, make it yourself item that you can do something that's a little different. But I know when I'm handling these things later, those are the little things that I appreciate. I go to pick it up and it just doesn't come, bowl doesn't come like right to the edge. It's got this little lip folded over, nice little attention to detail. This is the easy part, of course, because I'm going with the grain. Now when I start to go around this against the grain here on the outside with the end grain, that'll be a little bit more challenging. But really just sort of starting to define that. See how far in I go. I want to round that inside edge too, so I don't want to take this further too deep. I can go quite a ways though, but I usually kind of like to go all the way around several times rather than just start on one side and get it close. I don't know, kind of the way I am. The more I work this this bowl down, and I talk about how it changes your, you know, the bowl sort of reveals, the wood does what it wants to be. And I'd had sort of a rough idea, and I like having this lip around here, and then I was going to scallop in, if that's the proper term, the sides here to the base, and then have a little lip running around the base. But as I'm working this piece down, I'm seeing this amazing amount of caterpillar worm activity in the sapwood on this that right now I think it's just too much. I am not going to be happy with it if I try and work this into a finished surface. So while there's no problem with the inside of the bowl, all of that, these little ones, they can be filled without a problem. Here's one in the lip, but as you can see, some of these are just way beyond really filling, I think, and making it look decent. So what I'm going to do is cut this in even closer. So the bowl now is changing. It's going to be, it'll be a much smaller base, and these sides will be ground down, and then the bottom will be planed off, take down maybe another, through maybe even as much as 3/8 of an inch off of the bottom yet. So as I won't need that extra space for a raised bottom. So anyway, I will, I think I'm going to attack this and see what I can grind it down to, and hopefully I don't run it too thin in any particular spot. I just wanted to do a little update on where I am with this bowl I've been working on. Since my last section, here's where I'm down to now. I got the, this is about 1/4 of an inch thick in this area all the way around. I've removed about as much material as I want to at this point. I could make it a little thinner yet, but I'm not sure it would do much value. So I see I've got a serious wormhole here, but I can fill that. And I needed to reduce the bottom thickness. I took 1/4 of an inch off, this bowl is now in its finished shape. You can see I still have the caterpillar holes, but I've filled them with sawdust, and they show, of course, and they will. Well, you know, it gives the look of unique. May adds to its uniqueness, I guess. Yes, I've rounded, you know, sort of rounded this inner lip. Have this outer lip sort of finished the way I like it. The bottom, everything is essentially done. Now it just needs sanding, and I will have gone over everything, I think, with like 60 or 80 grit, and I'll work my way up to, oh, at least probably 180 on the inside, and then, you know, maybe 320 on the outside, and then on the inside I'll probably do a hand wiping with some 400, kind of knock that down a little bit before I put a finish on it. So before I do that, I've got some more sanding. This process takes time. You can really knock out a bowl pretty quick, but then the finishing is where all the time is taken. So anyway, that's where we are now. Time comes with every project when you say, I'm tired of working on it. It's as done as it's gonna get. So regardless of all of its little flaws, I guess, which just give it character, I am going to put a finish on this. Ever make one of these? Fancy. But when you're drying a bowl, works really good. So like that. So anyway, now I am going to use some walnut oil. Just pure walnut oil. This comes from Mahoney's. I don't. I like it on maple and a few other products. I'm going to use it here because what I would normally do is use a penetrating varnish, but my varnish kind of looked like it went bad. So I'm going to use the walnut oil and see how it turns out. I've used walnut oil on the Elm before, and I mean, it just really soaks in, which is fine. So let's just put a liberal amount in there. But I thought you might get a kick out of seeing how this changes color. This is really the most enjoyable part, I think, is finishing. This walnut oil, just walnut oil, you can use it with your bare hands, but it does set up eventually. So I'm going to tend to kind of keep stuff off my hands as much as possible. I just have to wash them again anyway. Now what I might do is, after this soaks in, I'll have to see. It's probably moving around fast for the camera. I'm actually just going to keep applying this as much as it wants to soak in. It'll probably soak in quite a bit. Walnut oil takes a few days to set up, maybe even longer to really cure. One of the few oils that will actually harden, like boiled linseed oil. Linseed oil will set up. They boil linseed oil so it'll set up faster. Most linseed oils use some metal accelerants in them, so I don't really like using them. I have it. You might use it for axe handles and stuff like that, but I don't really like even working with it. If you use rags for any of these kinds of oils, you really need to lay them out flat somewhere or put them in a pan of water, because they can set up on you, actually start fire as they're curing. I don't know if walnut oil would do that so much. It's slower curing, but you don't want to just take a rag and throw it in the trash. But I really do like the coloring that you get from the elm. It's a pretty wood. I think it's a very pretty wood. I'm going to keep working it in. It'll soak in a lot here in the end grain. Here. Just kind of rub it around. Some excess on the bottom I can use. One thing you ought to have for your shop is a box of these. They're dirt cheap. A lot of chemicals you're going to absorb over the years, so trying to absorb few as possible is going to keep you healthy longer later in life. And I wish I'd done that more when I was younger. When you're young, you don't think of those things. Live for today, right? But maybe you can make a bowl that will last a lifetime. This is the bowl I just finished up. It's has one heavy coat of walnut oil on it, and this is made out of elm. It's a piece of elm firewood. I just wanted to show a difference in finishes. This really is my preferred finish. This is also a piece of elm, but it was cut from the outside in, where this one, the bowl was cut from the inside out. See the difference in the grain patterns and the shape. You're going to get this boat shape when you do this. This finish is my preferred finish. It's really a coat of a wipe-on salad bowl finish. It's a thinned polyurethane, I believe, but I soak it in until it won't take anymore, and that really seals it up nice. Then I sand it down and get all of the surface varnish off, finish, and then I just oil it. Here's another bowl. This again, these are all elm. This one is again is an inside out piece, and that is finished with the walnut oil and wax. That's a bowl. Again, this one is finished my preferred method with sealing with the polyurethane. It's a salad bowl, so it gets used more and can be wet. You can see some of the other basic shapes and styles. This is a piece of magnolia, and surprisingly this one has a name. I don't name bowls generally, but for some reason I call this one the pig. I don't know why, really. But that's finished with this elbow finish, kind of a glossy finish. The spoon, Magnolia. I make spoons once in a while. Surprisingly, this spoon is called Spud. This is made out of Ipe, Brazilian hardwood, some leftover pieces from my deck. I don't buy wood to do this stuff with. Get some. My neighbor took out a bunch of trees. I got some Magnolia. That's what this comes from. This is an oil finish. Again, this is Ipe. This is varnished with the solid wool finish again. And this one was just oiled. However, this was oiled with coconut oil. But it's coffee, my coffee scoop, so just absorbing coffee. It actually smells like coffee now. This is the salad bowl finish. If I don't sand it off, it turns into a nice varnish-like finish. So good for a presentation bowl or something like that. This was probably one of the first ones I did when I got this this ash, or this, it's not ash one, elm, this elm wood. This is it's a piece of maple. And I didn't get a lot of this. Very difficult to work with hand tools, but it's kind of fun. Try and do something a little different with it. And this has the salad bowl finish on it again, more of a presentation piece. This was a piece of the Magnolia again. Just some basic spoon carving. This is spalded maple, piece of wood given to me by Darren White, a relative in Kansas, and I was trying to decide what I could do with it. It was kind of an odd-shaped wedge piece, but it was very very porous and fragile. I impregnated it with some material to stiffen it up, and then carved this little tray out. It came out, I think, rather nice. So anyway, that gives you an idea of wood finishes, what you can do, and I use a variety of hand tools and power tools, whatever sort of strikes my fancy, and depending on how kind of a hurry I get in. But anyway, it's a lot of fun.